everyone. Alex, how are you?
Very good.
Yeah?
No paedophiles.
No what?
No paedophiles. So I'm feeling, I don't know what else you've got for me, but I'm hopeful.
Well, I didn't expect to go to the, that end. Okay. That's really thrown me. Let's talk about the...
That was in no way the aim.
Have you got any other scandals brewing that you want to talk about up front or not?
No.
Well,
no.
Let's see about that. Paralympics, 10 years ago, a bit more, sorry, 12 years ago, Paralympics in 2012 was this huge transformative event for Channel 4, amazing moment for Channel 4 in its history. What did the Paralympics this year do for you in terms of viewers and in terms of money?
So I don't know all the money yet because we haven't done all the calculations, but it went well. Viewing share was up, best commercial week we've had since 2012. And which is amazing. There's no point comparing it to Tokyo because that was like in the middle of the night, wasn't it? But compared to 2012, that's incredible for us. And the thing that I think is incredible is that young share was up compared to then. So 16 to 34 share was up compared to 2012, which I think tells you sort of something interesting about young people. I think John Gapper sort of referred to young people earlier as flibbity gibbets or something. But actually, the fact that young people are more interested now in the Paralympics than they were 12 years ago on linear and streaming kind of shows us how they've changed things in society, how they're more accepting, how they're more interested, they're interested in difference. So I think that's quite a positive thing.
And so that those young people were watching it mostly through full streaming as opposed to on linear?
Watching both. I mean, a lot of sport, as you heard from Warner's, is still live, right? So you watch it live. They watch bits of it streamed, and they watch the last leg streamed and the catch-up. But really, most of it's live. That's the driver for sport, and that's the key reason why broadcasters still love sport.
What did the general election do for you in terms of viewers and in terms of money?
It's the first time we've done the general election big. And Ian Katz said, oh, it'll be great. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Is the general election going to be really good on Channel 4? And actually, it was incredible.
Why were you skeptical? Sorry, why were you a bit unsure?
Because we haven't really done it before, and we're not really known as a player in election coverage, and most people turn to BBC One or ITV. But actually, for young people, we did double the share of ITV, and for volume, we were up for long periods of it. So we did really well. That was the casting. You know, it was a great kind of casting to put the Rest is Politics guys together with Emily Maitlis and with Krish. And we had a lot of politicians on. You know, we're the only people. We had Nadine Dorris, obviously, in a kind of face-off with Alistair Campbell. So that was fun. At moments it was a bit scary. And, you know, we had a Reform candidate on. Nobody else did. So I think that had kind of breadth of reach. And we had Hannah Fry doing the kind of version of the swingometer and the stats. Yeah. So it all felt new and fresh. And loads of people came to Channel 4 for that. I didn't know if we could really do that. It's quite an established art, but it went really, really well for us.
Let's talk about your business model. So how has streaming, previously 4OD, a long time ago, how has that grown as a proportion of your revenues and of your viewing?
So, you know, the key thing, and you know, Netflix talked about it earlier, and broadcasters have talked about it, BBC talked about streaming, but of course they don't have to make money from streaming on linear.
Well, you make it through ads mostly, right?
From their money comes from the license fee, but for us we have to make it through ads. So the key thing is, can we transfer from linear live ads into digital streaming ads? Most of our business is ads. And now this year we'll hit about 30% of our money from digital advertising.
How's that grown? So that's grown a lot.
It's grown massively. Last year it would have been 27%, but it's been growing for a long time. The average across commercial broadcasters in Europe is about 11%. So it's way ahead of market.
So are you planning for a world in which, say, 5-7 years from now, Channel 4 makes most of its money still from ads, but does so more from streaming than from linear?
Yeah, two things. One is we'll hit 50% within a few years, so more will be from digital than linear. And two is we'll diversify our revenues to make money from other things as well. We have to do that. That's part of what the Media Act is about. It's a part of doing Channel 4 Plus, which is subscriber. It's part of doing fast channels and thinking about how we launch e-commerce and other things. So we'll grow that. That revenue is about 10% now, but we need to be growing that to 15-20% of our money.
Is a digital eyeball worth as much to you as a linear one?
What a great question. It's worth more. And the reason it's worth more is because advertisers want to put money into digital. That's obvious. You don't get fired as an advertiser for doing that. But they want to put it into digital content that is high quality. You know, they want their advertising alongside content that is high quality, that consumers are very engaged in. And the third thing they want is a way they can measure it. So about 30% of our money is from digital advertising, but only about 18% of our viewing is from digital advertising. So monetization is ahead on digital. It's totally different to newspapers, where that market collapsed away because of Google and display advertising. In broadcaster video on demand, and it's the same for the other broadcasters, we've managed to keep that market quite high and valuable to advertisers.
Okay. You talk about diversifying revenues. I want to talk a bit about the different things you're planning there, particularly under this big umbrella of something called Fast Forward, which is your plan for the future. How much money are you making? How much of your business now comes from subscription revenues for people who pay for full streaming without ads?
Oh, that's quite small for us. It's only like hundreds of thousands of consumers do it, and that's not our core business model. It's good to have.
It's a nice add-on.
Yeah, because for some viewers, especially like when viewers are really into Married at First Sight, they want to binge on it. They want to pay to watch as much of possible of it without advertising. Fair enough. But it's not even 5% of our business. You know, by far the majority is advertising. But it's quite good for us to have that as an option for the most loyal and dedicated viewers.
Okay. Before we talk about the indies, and many of whom are represented in this room, what is your Fast Forward plan? What does it mean in practical? I mean, there's a lovely slide deck, which I've seen online. But in practical terms, what have you done to reshape the business?
So look, it's three things. Moving to digital faster. So we're way ahead of market. That's going very well. Consumers are responding very well to it. But that's easy to set as a strategy. It's quite hard to do. The second thing is making sure we diversify the business and come up with other ways to make money, not just advertising. And the third thing is moving ourselves out of linear. You know, it's making sure we just don't wait for that to happen, but making active decisions about how we do it so we can prioritize our investment towards those other things.
Okay. A lot of that sounds lovely.
Thank you.
But
stop there, Amol.
Yeah,
we could just chat about other things, talk about telly.
That's it, we could go. But a lot of people in this room work, particularly in the small independent production sector, and of course Channel 4 was set up in the 1980s really to give that sector somewhere to go, and it's been an amazing national success story. A lot of people are having a really shit time. And what they want to know is, what's your message to them about, A, the overall commercial health of Channel 4, and secondly, just be really transparent about is what they need to do to get a piece of the Channel 4 money pie.
So last year was horrendous for indies, and this year hasn't been much better, has it? You know, that we had the US strike, we had a downturn in the ad market that really affected us, and it affected all the other broadcasters as well who make money from advertising. And obviously the BBC also is under pressure to reduce costs. So none of us were spending more money on production. And in combination, that's had a massive hit on the industry. And it's not particularly better this year. So for all indies, I think it's tough. For small indies, for regional indies, for national indies, for medium-sized ones, even big ones, sometimes they don't have the rights still in what's being commissioned, so it's hard to retain IP. It is getting better. The ad market is recovering, so there are green shoots of that. We started to buy bigger again, but I think it's really, really tough.
What are you looking for? How do they get some of your money?
Well, they come in and get commission as normal, but the switch is that if you look at where consumer tastes are, there is a desire for live, daytime, things that are on that feel familiar in the day, and then they want high-end, streamable, binging, high-quality things. For us, that's a lot of factual formats. It's a lot of crime. It's things like The Jury or The Push or To Catch a Copper, those things that have worked really well. Merseyside Detectives was a massive hit for this summer, as well as drama and as well as Married at First Sight and Gogglebox and Bake Off, etc. But the middle that lots of producers have diligently built their business on over time, consumers aren't coming to that as much. So I think that's another difficult change for the industry. So it's not just the downturn of last year and the strike, it's also that the kinds of programs that consumers want to watch is changing. And that means that for some people, their businesses are finding it really, really hard to survive. I mean, our job is to try and be clear about what we want to buy and make sure that we brief out. But I think, and you've heard from Pat, it's an incredibly tough time to be an indie in the UK.
Are you seeing green shoots of recovery that means
totally.
people here should feel that next year is going to be better for them than the last?
Yeah, I think, but I don't think we'll get back to the boom times that there were of previous years, right? Because streamers also have become more disciplined about how they spend as the business model there has settled down. And as some of the ones that won't survive there are getting consolidated into each other, right? That won't happen to Netflix, but it will happen to some others. So that boom of, to some degree, untrammeled, uncontrolled, not thinking about the return spending has also changed. So for us, we're buying much more now. There are green shoots. We've announced loads of commissions at Edinburgh. Indies are in touch with us. But I think it's wrong to say that we're going to return next year to those boom times. So I think it's really, really tough to be an indie right now. And there will be some, unfortunately, who will not be able to regain their business.
Do you want to own your own IP?
Yeah, well, we've got the right now from government in the Media Act to own our own IP.
Sorry, I should ask, how quickly do you want to grow that as a business?
I don't want to grow it in a way that damages the indie sector, especially with what they've just been through.
That sounds like a very diplomatic
answer. I have done an announcement this summer saying, 1, it's going to take about a year till the government actually enact it and give permissions. 2, we'll then grow it slowly after that. 3, there are multiple ways that we could do it, not just starting an indie, and we won't be buying massive indies. So it's a slow burn and won't make a dramatic difference for some time.
And the reason you're smiling is because you don't want people in the indie sector to think, bloody hell, they're going to come and eat our lunch.
Well, I've made it really clear that I don't think we should be damaging the indie sector. So I'm smiling because I'm like, it's just, sometimes people think there's some kind of dastardly plot, but there isn't. We're going to do it slowly and quite carefully.
Okay. I think they hear you loud and clear. Were you smiling when you saw that Richard Osman and Marina Hyde, who are doing a podcast later today, did an episode of their podcast earlier this year with the headline, How to Save Channel 4?
I like their podcast, yeah.
Did you like that particular edition?
Well, there were some good bits of it.
And some less good bits of it. Can I just, I think in the spirit of accuracy and fairness, want to put some of the bits of it that you might not have liked to you, and then you can respond, because I don't know if you... Did they invite you on? They should have invited you on to...
They haven't they're up there, though, but they haven't invited me on. I could see Richard.
Oh, hi, guys.
There's no hiding for Richard, is there?
I didn't know he was going to be in the room. This is going to be really awkward, because I'm not going to read out his really rude things that he said. But fuck it. So he said, Richard Osman, who's up there, said, and I quote, about Channel 4. By the way, in spirit of fairness, they caveated it by being extremely nice about Channel 4, its general mission, and actually about its leadership and how hard that is. So all those caveats notwithstanding, they said, Richard, who sat up there, said, I think they're in real trouble. I think they're in real trouble for various reasons. Channel 4 seems to be stuck on the rocks a bit. They've run out of money in the last 18 months. They're not commissioning. And then Marina said, there's been quite a lot of anger amongst the sector which owes its existence in some ways to Channel 4, to which Richard said, like, a lot. And I want to put 2 things that they said to you specifically so you can respond to them. The first is when Richard said, you talk to anyone in the indie sector and it's hard to find anyone that has a great relationship with Channel 4. Now that's slightly taken out of context, because what he did say is that it's been a very difficult time for the indie sector as a whole. But how would you characterize the relationship between Channel 4 and the great creative brains of the indie sector right now?
I think it was really rocky. I mean, we cut money last year. We didn't cut money as much as we could have done. Like, we made a massive loss last year because we kept spending on programming, but it hit indies hard, and it hit them first, right? Because we're the biggest commissioner of indies, so we spend the most, and over 200 indies work with us. So when, I think the phrase is like, when Channel 4 catches a cold, everyone else does. So that's hard, right? It happened later at Paramount and at ITV and at Sky, but it happened first with us, and we were quite open about that. So I think it was really hard, and relations were really rocky, and now we started spending again, and I think also people have seen it happen everywhere else. Yep. And the realization is it wasn't just us, but also indies were immense defenders of us during the privatisation, should we call it debate? So also understand a level of rage of like, well, we helped, and now this has happened. We didn't expect there to be an advertising downturn. Nobody did. Nobody expected that to be a 10% hit. But that's 100 million off our top line, and it has to go somewhere. So that was really, really hard for them. So I do understand that rage. I think it's improved quite a lot now. But maybe they can mention that on their podcast later.
Well, their podcast is fantastic.
They're doing a special at the end.
It's a fantastic podcast. It's called The Rest is Entertainment. They're doing one later today.
Also, the Today Show podcast is very good.
It's called The Today Podcast, and it is excellent. Yeah, you're quite right. The other thing that Richard...
Where were you?
Where was I? The other thing that he said, I just want to put this to you, is he said, because I want to come on to privatisation, he also said television is many, many things, millions of things, but it is a hit business and nothing else. Channel 4, I think, has had trouble creating hits in the last 5 to 6 years. Most of the hits they have are shows from a very long time ago, and the hits they've had, like Bake Off and Taskmaster, they've bought off the shelf.
Yeah, I did listen to it. He also said we should do a quiz, but that's mainly because he's in the quiz business. I don't think that what we need.
Well, University Challenge is not for sale, as far as I know.
So we'll maybe start watching Countdown. Very, very successful. Been on since 1982. Look, Married at First Sight is massive and back last night. Hollyoaks, we've just reformed and did its biggest ever streaming episode last week. The Piano is a huge homegrown hit.
Which he acknowledged,
in the
in
past
fairness.
couple of years. Merseyside's Detectives was a massive, massive hit this summer, reforming how that crime is seen in Britain. So there are hits there. Maybe he's not watching them all, but I'm happy to send him some links.
Fantastic. Let's talk about privatisation. We used to talk quite a lot about what you really thought about privatisation, what lots of people in the industry thought about privatisation. Just on a political thing, can I just give now, with the benefit of there having been a general election and that not being an active policy under consideration, would you be honest and say that your strategy, which was effective, was partly about, frankly, just delaying things until you knew there'd be a change of culture secretary and a change of government?
God, I wish it had felt like that. I did go in for a day one meeting 2 weeks ago to realise it was my 10th Secretary of State day one meeting, and I've been in this job 6 years. So there has been a lot of change, but our strategy was not delayed.
I'm just thinking for people from around the world. I mean, Ted, who's in the room, it is an extraordinary thing. I covered this beat for a long time. There's a very important piece of legislation called the Online Safety Bill. It is an absolutely extraordinary thing about this country that there's been such churn that something like whether or not Channel 4 should be privatised is passed between 10 different people who have cabinet responsibility in 6 years.
Sometimes, because they're often in the same office, sometimes they don't even have time to change the art, which is like a big thing when they come into post. But anyway, it wasn't delay. It was focus on why you would make a decision. Data, facts, evidence. You know, and in the end, there wasn't the data or the facts or the evidence.
Why wouldn't privatisation be a good thing for Channel 4? Why wouldn't some way of protecting the model where it's still about commercial funding but to a public service remit, but with a huge influx of investment, why would that not be the right way forward?
Well, it depends what you want Channel 4 for. So I would say it depends what you want it to do. If you want it to make a return to shareholders and make a profit, absolutely possible. If you want it to take the advertising revenue it makes and put the vast majority of it into UK independents who retain their IP and grow their companies and then can sell their companies or make them profitable, and you want to put it into moving to the nations and regions and having hundreds and hundreds of roles there, more than 50% of spend there, and you want it to put money into 4 skills, training 57,000 people last year, kids in schools, etc., then that is not compatible with maximising profits. And as someone who's worked for both private equity and private shareholders, I do know that those two things aren't compatible because they all cost money and it's done as a not-for-profit. So there's definitely a different model where you can return money and pull it out for shareholders, but you're not going to get all of those outcomes. You're going to have to own much, much more of the IP. You're going to have to stop doing all those things that cost money that don't make a profit. It's a different thing. It's just a parliamentary decision of what do you want Channel 4 for. I don't think those two things are fully incompatible, but the way it was pitched was that you could have both simultaneously, which I think is most unlikely.
You mentioned a bunch of things there, like 4 skills, like the investment in nations and regions, which doesn't necessarily get a huge amount of attention, but I know occupies quite a lot of your time. How has the reallocation of resources, in particular to Leeds, changed Channel 4 and the culture of it?
I think one of the most interesting for me were it's like 2 decisions. One is we put the growth businesses in Leeds. So we put 4 Studio, which is the business where all the social content is made and the digital content and all the younger people are, and saw that as a growth business. And 2 is when we offered people the chance to go there, when we moved other functions, 90% of people said they didn't want to go for understandable reasons. They had their kids in school in London, or their other half was here and they couldn't move their job. So that meant that 90% of the roles we moved were new people. And they were people who wanted to be based there, probably were from within the region, or sometimes there were people who really wanted to move, and that completely freshened Channel 4. 42% of our staff have been in Channel 4 less than 3 years. So that's a massive amount of churn and change, but with that, you also get a new Channel 4. You get people who've got new enthusiasm, new knowledge, new learnings from elsewhere. So for us, it's been a really, really positive thing in terms of changing our own culture, which is not always easy to do, but it's been really positive.
And what beyond that have you done on the issue of social mobility? Because I know you spent years thinking about this. One of the biggest problems this industry faces is that it does feel to a lot of people like a massive stitch-up where posh people pass out jobs to other posh people that they happen to know. And I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about that and acting on it. What have you done that's worked?
Well, first of all, measurement. Sorry to sound very dull on all
No,
issues.
you publish data, don't you?
Measurement, published data. It's
On the
about
class pay gap.
30%. Well, on the pay gap, yeah, but also about percentage of staff. Second, it's bringing people into the industry, but that doesn't always make the shift at the top, right? So data is really important for that. Now we've all got targets individually as execs. When we go out to schools, we're focused on the schools with the highest percentage of free school meals. So all of our outreach and bringing people into the industry is completely focused on people who otherwise might not get into the industry. And now we're starting to do things like care experience, so measure how many staff are what's called care experience, so they've come out of care at some point or had involvement in care. How many people are also have those caring responsibilities within the organization, and then how do we support them? So that's just starting to do that, but those are the kind of interventions that begin to make a more significant difference with the population of staff.
Got Lisa Nandy here, Secretary of State, later on this stage. What's your message to her? What do you say to her? What can you say publicly, which is a version of what you say to her privately, about what you want from a Labour government?
Yeah, I think you heard from Sarah Rose very eloquently yesterday, get on with the bits of the Media Act, prominence, etc. That's important. I would also say think about the influence of culture in schools. So, you know, sport in schools, arts and culture in schools. We did a big piece coming out of the Paralympics about there are 1.5 million disabled kids in school in the UK. Only 1 in 4 gets access to sport. We all know there's a complete lack of arts and culture in schools as well. I think they've got a broader purview as a department, and they're thinking as a government about what can they change positively in UK society. All of those things also help our industry. So try not to have quite so much change, I'd say, because as you say, 10 people moving in and out of office in 5-6 years is too many to get stuff done. And then invest in and understand the industry to make sure you can make long-term change.
Can we all give Alex Mahon a massive round of applause? Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Think we're good to go? Let's go. Thank you.